Listen, get your calls in 03717 223344. Lots for us to talk about. Remember, we're keeping you up to date, by the way, with Hull taking on Middlesbrough. Arsenal kicked off as well away at the GTEC Community Stadium against Brentford in the Premier League. We'll have updates from there very, very shortly. The main headlines, though, from the Championship today, live here on talkSPORT. You heard a 1-1 draw between Leeds United and Blackburn Rovers. 2 goals right at the death. Was the draw a fair result, though? I think the Leeds United fans will have something to say about that. But the Blackburn supporters, don't want to make that mistake. The Blackburn supporters will maybe feel a little bit unhappy with the penalty that was awarded against their side. What did you make of it, Scott?
Yeah, I was listening to you and Adrian just a few minutes ago, and Adrian clearly thought it was a pen. You sort of siding on the fact that it wasn't. Am I correct?
Soft, and I didn't see any major contact there.
Do you know what? As a defender, you quite simply have to go for it. That's not to say that it can't be a foul, but I don't believe there was enough contact that stopped him. He kicked the ball that went straight to the keeper. He wouldn't have got the ball at the end of it. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be it's not a foul. But you put everything into the mix. The defender has to go for it. Doesn't really make contact. It's the Leeds player that's going forward. He falls over. I think Leeds got away with that one, really. And John Eustace, his record against Daniel Farke has been pretty good up until today. And actually say up until today, going to Elland Road and getting the draw in the form that Leeds are in at home this season, I think that's a sensational result. And a great character for them to coming back so late, 1-0 down, and found a way to get something out of the game.
Yeah, I think so as well. And Lewis Baker's reaction, he didn't make the challenge, but he was, a yard away from it. He was furious with Mateo Joseph, who was the player who was fouled for the penalty, because it did look like a little bit of play acting as well. Listen, all players do it. You can call it smart. He actually...
You're going to do it.
He gets the penalty, but Baker being so close and being so furious, he doesn't come across to me as a guy who has a particular bad temper. You know, he was clearly insulted by the writhing around on the floor of Mateo Joseph, suggested to me that there wasn't much contact.
Yeah, I genuinely think the genuine reaction of players immediately tells you whether something's a foul or not. And the fact that he reacted like that... Look, I covered Leeds for a good few years in the Championship. I loved going to Elland Road. I really did. The atmosphere there was nothing short of sensational. Probably a Champions League atmosphere, as good as...
Did it get to the referee in that moment?
I think it probably did. If it was away from home, if it was at Ewood Park, can't even say down the other end. I think the Leeds fans are so powerful and so intense that they would put the pressure on the referee. Listen, I think it's one of those where we know that VAR is not involved in the EFL, but if it was, it wouldn't be a clear and obvious error, so it wouldn't have been overturned. But I just felt in that particular moment, defender's gone for it, but he hasn't really fouled the player. So, yeah, Leeds got away with that one. But it's a good point for John Eustace and Blackburn for sure.
Burnley will maybe be disappointed with their goalless draw against Stoke at Turf Moor today.
Another goalless draw.
7th goalless draw of the season. They are 11 games unbeaten in the league, 7 wins, 4 draws in that time. And they go to Blackburn for a huge Lancashire derby next as well before they host Sunderland. So the next 2 games very important for Scott Parker's side. Burnley 3 points now behind Leeds in the table. Actually, Sheffield United can go level on points with Leeds a little bit later on if they can win at the Stadium of Light against Sunderland, live on talkSPORT this evening. But it seems like at the moment Burnley are kind of paying for just that true goal scorer in their forward line, someone that you can truly bank on, because I think Scott Parker, and listen, I know people are saying that maybe they're turning into a bit of a boring side. I've heard that labelled with Burnley at the moment. Where they are in the table and the record they've had of late, I think most clubs would die for, actually. But the other thing about it is he's had to create this side in the season, because as we know, they started with a number of players we were familiar with in the Premier League last season. Virtually all of them were sold. I think it was in the mid-teens of players going out of the club, something like 16 leaving, 18 coming in, around about those numbers for Scott Parker. And it's taken him some time to gel them together. But actually the harder thing to do is to have the defensive record they've had so far, which is incredible for the first just over half of the season in the Championship. I think they've conceded 9 goals,
9 goals, yeah.
That's incredible for a team that has largely been put together, a defensive unit that has largely been put together whilst the season had already started. I get it if you had a bit of a pre-season, but to do that on the fly basically is remarkable. Obviously, we all say the toughest thing in football is to score goals. That's what the players tell me. And so Scott Parker will need to get goals in the team. But I think at this stage, when you look around the competition that Burnley have, although there are some very strong teams, they look just as strong when it comes to points per game, when it comes to their ability to get a result. It's not like Sheffield United are banging in the goals left, right and centre. Leeds United are the team that do that on their day, but they're not doing that every single weekend either. So if they, in this January transfer window, and I think they truly do need to go out and find someone who can score them goals, Burnley, and with that Premier League money from last season and the number of sales that they've made, I'd be very, very disappointed if I was a Burnley fan and they didn't bring in some attacking options during this January. But if they can do that, they will score goals and they'll be in a much better position to challenge for automatic promotion.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree with any of that. The only thing I would say, and it is really difficult to bring players in and then suddenly have that kind of, them gelling together both defensively and offensively. So what do you do first? You try and make it as difficult to be broken down. You're right about what the ex-players say, because it is more difficult to score goals, and it is a little bit easier to create a very good defensive structure which you can practice on day after day, double sessions if you want. It's much easier to destroy than it is to create. But still, those numbers are brilliant. I mean, if you're only conceding 9 goals in 25 games, then you only really need to score one, to win a game. So I think that's it. Look, it's like any manager at any level, the balance between defence and attack is a very difficult thing to do. Whereas Scott Parker has gone in there and look, I covered the Championship when the Championship player final where Fulham beat Brentford and Brentford were favourites to go in. Going into that game, and yet his tactics were sensational and completely did Thomas Frank in that one. So Scotty did really well there. Here, he's looking at the squad that he's got. He's thinking, we've just got to make ourselves difficult to beat. And again, I was listening to Perry Groves earlier, and I think he's spot on. You absolutely need to try and get those clean sheets and then try and work forward with that. Because if you're conceding goals and you've got a group of players who are just all joined, even more difficult to try and score 2, 3, 4 goals to win a game. So yeah, he hasn't quite got the balance right, but they're second in the table, Burnley. Very different to the Vincent Kompany side of a couple of seasons ago. But the Burnley fans won't really care if it means going back up again.
Yeah, lots to talk about in the EFL today. If you've got a view on Burnley or Leeds United, Blackburn, give us a call, 03717 223344. If you're just leaving a ground as well, jumping in the car, let us know where you are, what journey you're making. If you've got a view on your side's performance, send us a voice note on WhatsApp. You can do that at the regular number, 03717 223344. Owls fans, what a result, what a goal from Windass. Pompey batter Swansea. It was another defeat, a negative for Luton. The question is, why can't they get their season going? 9 points from 9 at Oxford United for Gary Rowett. QPR, Argyle, Stoke fans, give us a call. Plenty to discuss. 03717 223344.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.